but over 100 systems. Over 1,000 planets, all open for you to explore.
Bethesda most certainly really just loves their catchphrases. With Fallout 4 we had "It Just Works," with Fallout 76 it was 16 times the detail. This time around with Starfield we have 100 systems, 1,000 planets to explore. Already everybody is shivering in fear with that comment just because we've seen other developers promise these huge, vast open worlds in which exploration is just infinite, and that's kind of the problem with infinite exploration, is that a lot of that relies on procedural generation. And at the moment we don't know how involved procedural generation will be with these worlds that we're exploring, but that is a fear that a lot of people have right now. Nevertheless, there have been a lot of reactions to this Starfield gameplay reveal, and it's honestly a mixed bag. There's a lot of love going for Bethesda Game Studios' ambitious sci-fi RPG, while a lot of people are just absolutely trashing on it. And while I can understand some of the criticism, I do feel like some of it's going a little bit over the line. Some of that is just the hate because of the fact that this is an Xbox exclusive. But personally myself, I wasn't as blown away as some individuals were. I know a lot of people were just going absolutely nuts with this reveal. I kind of saw the flaws that I knew were going to be here. It's just the flaws that you have with Bethesda's design, and it's just that creation engine. I really wish they would move past that, but it is here once again, and it still looks janky. By far the most noticeable issue that a lot of people immediately brought up online was the FPS drops. You could see that in the gameplay, and with this being scripted a little bit, they cut a lot of sections out. I'm kind of concerned. I know that other developers, I'd be like, they can polish this up, it'll be fine. This game's probably not coming out for about another year, but this is Bethesda Game Studios. This is what we've come accustomed to with how they go about game development. Skyrim had these issues, Fallout 4 had these issues, Fallout 76 had these issues, and Starfield probably is going to have these issues as well. There was also some pop-in, there was some enemy AI issues as well, some of them just floating around, others not reacting at all to the players shooting them. It just looks dated. That's the best way I can put it. Additionally, right off the bat, another thing I noticed was the gunplay, and it doesn't look great, but I do think that it is an improvement over Fallout 4 and 76. Also, that's never been the focus of these Bethesda experiences, so I'm not going too crazy about the fact that it's not a great shooter. If it's decent and serviceable, that's all that really matters to me, especially where the focus is supposed to be with the exploration and the character interactions that we're supposed to have with this, because this is a single-player, story-driven, role-playing experience. Now, with that said, I really don't know what to make of the story and what's going on in Starfield, because it isn't exactly too clear. We got a little bit of an idea on some of the factions. It's kind of the generic setup of good and bad guys. I hope that there's some more layers to these Crimson pirates. And we also did get an introduction to other major factions, that being the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective. It's been revealed based on some of the lore with the game that the Freestar Collective fought against the United Colonies in the Colony War in 2310. By 2330, it had retained its independence, but the peace with the UC was fragile. So I guess some sort of Cold War is happening within the events of Starfield that we'll have to uncover. Hopefully we have some choice with how that goes about. But it does appear that the larger story, or the main premise of Starfield, is just exploration. We are an explorer. I guess we come upon some type of artifact and we join the group, the Constellation. As you can see in the gameplay, some woman, kind of reminds me of the girl from the 100, gives us a little bit of an overview of us exploring and trying to find the answers of the universe, and that's what Constellation does. Based on some of the lore that's already been revealed, Constellation is said to be an organization in Starfield committed to unlocking the mysteries of the galaxy. It has been referred to as the last group of space explorers. So what that exactly leads into, it's a mystery, and it's a mystery that we'll uncover once we get to play this game, hopefully about a year from now. But it does appear that there's a big focus on these artifacts and maybe them all coming together to give us answers, and maybe those answers lead us to another sentient alien race. Because that is something that I noticed wasn't here, and I was kind of a little bummed by that. Now, with that said, let's move away from the story of Starfield and get into the 1,000 planets that are explorable and my concerns with that. While it's awesome that you can land anywhere on a planet, probably going to be some procedural generation involved with this. So we've seen procedural generation involved in past Fallout experiences. Notably in Fallout 4 was those Radiant quests that nobody really cared about. And that is kind of the immediate thought that I'm having with Starfield. From what Todd Howard revealed, some planets will have life, some just resources. I do wonder if it's going to be taking the Mass Effect approach in which we can just scan the planet, gather some resources instead of having to land, or if it's going to be more complicated than that. I guess we'll learn about that later on, but there's a lot of elements from various different games here. We have a lot of No Man's Sky here, the base building, although Bethesda kind of did that. Space fights look very similar, scanning flora, fauna, mining resources, all No Man's Sky-esque, although that seems to be the standard for space sci-fi RPGs nowadays. Because based on this early look, you really could compare Starfield to a number of games. It looks like The Outer Worlds, it looks like Fallout, it looks like Skyrim, it looks like Star Citizen. Again, the list is endless, and I really do hope that there's some personality with Starfield and some major differences, because especially with these planets that were shown, a lot of them looked kind of empty, and while that is cool to explore them, I'm just hoping that there's a lot of meaningful content here. And that is the thing that's getting a lot of people nervous about the fact that there's 1,000 planets to explore, and I think the assumption many have is that we'll probably only explore a couple of planets, maybe 5 to 10, that actually have meaningful content and places to venture into. What do I mean by that? Settlements and towns and so on and so forth. While there are not infinite planets to explore, I do think that there are many important lessons that I hope Bethesda learned from No Man's Sky and the issues that they suffered in the early days. Obviously they've turned that around, but this is a big AAA experience, which is, I know I've seen some people calling it No Man's Sky Skyrim, and I honestly think that would be fair. What is most important is avoiding the basic No Man's Sky formula, especially in the early days. I don't know what it is like now, I haven't played in the last year or so, but what I recall from my experience was just going planet to planet to planet and having the basic same things. It was a couple of outposts you would go to, you'd find some rare resources on X, Y, and Z planet, and there maybe be a special artifact that you could come upon and discover, and that formula repeated on every single planet, and it kind of got boring eventually, and that's when I dropped my controller down and moved on to the next game. Ultimately though, this is Todd Howard's dream game. He's talked about this for the longest time. This is something that he's wanted to do for the longest time. It's extremely ambitious, and I really do hope that they hit a home run with this experience, because some of these planets, they look stunning, but also some did look kind of boring, bland, and empty. That was mostly that montage near the end of the gameplay reveal, which I honestly thought was concerning, while others were like, wow, this looks really interesting, look at these worlds, they look so beautiful, and I didn't get that. That wasn't my takeaway from that. But other things I did notice was the fact that there was no release date, which is probably a good thing since it seems like this is going to need a lot more work. And then there was also no look at any dialogue options, just kind of a weird omission considering that that is going to be a major thing within Starfield. But look, while it may sound like I'm being negative about Starfield, it's just there are many reasons to be hesitant about this. I have a lot of trust issues with Bethesda. They have burned me many times in the past. But hey, I sunk a ton of hours into Fallout 4. It was a very good game. I wouldn't say it was a great Fallout game, just because the narrative side was kind of a mess in my opinion, but I did enjoy base building. I enjoyed a lot of the gameplay elements, and I do hope that is the same feeling I have with Starfield. I'm just trying to scale back my expectations a little bit, but hey, even here, there was a lot of really good stuff. The big one was Spaceship Customization. I know the modding community had to have been jumping up and down because there's just so much potential here. Years after this releases, the modding community is just going to go absolutely crazy with this, and I'm honestly excited for that. But yeah, there's a lot of RPG mechanics tied to this, as Todd Howard revealed. There's different companies with different parts, and we'll be upgrading this throughout the experience. You could see all kinds of different features with this. We can improve our engine, our shield, gravity. We also have the weapons that we can manage, the hull, shield, cargo. We can also manage the crew members that are allowed on certain parts of the spaceship, the jump range, mobility, top speed, mass. There are just so many different stats, or I guess you could say parts, to this system, and it's going to be a ton of fun messing around with all this. Furthermore, if you slow down the footage, you'll actually notice that with customizing your spaceship, some of it requires certain skills, and I just love these RPG mechanics. I really do hope there's a greater emphasis on that here. Maybe if we side with certain factions, that'll impact with certain parts that we can use. The possibilities really are endless. And actually, speaking of RPG mechanics, the character creator looks amazing. I just love the addition of bringing back our background for our character. We get a couple of different ones. We can be a combat medic, leave it to human beings to fight over something as infinite as outer space. That's where you come in. You've never been afraid to take on the enemy, but you'd much rather take care of your friends. And then you get some starting skills. Pistols do 10% more damage. Med packs heal 10% 10% more, increased total carrying capacity by 10 kilograms. Then another option is being a diplomat. The wars are over, peace now reigns in the settled systems, but only because there are those quietly fighting to keep it. Because of you, agreements were signed, words were heeded, lives were spared, and the starting skills you get are persuasion, gain an increased chance of success on speech challenges, diplomacy, you can force a target NPC at or below your level to stop fighting for a while, and then bargaining, buy items for 5% less and sell for 10% more. And then another system right next to it is traits, which seems to be that there's some benefits but also flaws. A Neon street rat, you grew up on the mean streets of Neon, you gain access to special dialogue options and better rewards from some missions on Neon, crime bounty by other factions is greatly increased. Another one, Serpent's Embrace, you grew up worshipping the Great Serpent. Grav jumping provides temporary boost to health and endurance, but health and endurance are lowered if you don't continue jumping regularly, like an addiction. These are the things I love about RPGs, and I'm really glad that Bethesda is going back to it with this experience. But I think you kind of get an idea with my perspective on Starfield. There's potential here, and from what I'm seeing from a lot of people, it's a lot of indifference. It's a lot of, well, this looks good, but this doesn't look good. Like, for example, the UI, I actually think it looks fresh. It looks pretty darn good. I love the new lockpicking minigame. I think that it looks fantastic with this sci-fi upgrade to it. I guess that's the best way to put it. Bethesda has always been great at world building, and some of these settlements and towns, they look stunning. They look like they're going to be a ton of fun to explore. And then zero-G fights, they just look like they could be epic fun. So there's a lot of, you hear me putting an emphasis on that word fun, and that is the thing. I really do think I could be spending tons of hours with Starfield. It's just there are some flaws here, things that I really do hope that Bethesda fixes, some of which I don't know if they will, and that's just because of their engine, such as a lot of the facial animations, they just looked a little bit off. Like some of these characters, they looked a little too stiff in the face, if that makes sense. That is something that Bethesda has always struggled with. It is improvement over what we've seen with Fallout 76 and Fallout 4, but this is just the issue with Bethesda's engine, in which it's dated in many areas. So that is indeed my perspective on Starfield. Now, what's been going on online and the other reactions that I've seen, it's pretty much a mixed bag of this looks terrible and also this looks amazing and revolutionary, next gen. It really is surprising how far apart some people are on this game. Unfortunately though, there are some that just don't want to hear any criticism at all. We had one user, a journalist, saying, now that they've lost the no gameplay narrative, fanboys have taken to calling Starfield a No Man's Sky ripoff. Can't make this up. I wouldn't call it a No Man's Sky ripoff, but they do share many similarities. It's really foolish to just ignore that. And it's not just individuals online saying that. You've seen IGN, GameSpot, and many other outlets making those similarities and comparisons. Another user on Twitter saying, when I look at the Starfield reveal, all I see is No Man's Sky, Fallout 4 gameplay, and an overhyped community like Cyberpunk was. And somehow I bet on release this game is going to have the same problem. Don't quote me on that last bit, I can always be wrong, and I do hope that he is wrong. I really do hope that Bethesda blows us all away. Alana Pierce, a video game writer who was also at one point a journalist, she said, I might be alone here, but my near immediate reaction to there are 1,000 planets is way more concern than hype. I'm excited to play Starfield for a bunch of reasons, but 1,000 planets just makes me go, okay, most of those must be very barren. I don't have time for that. Definitely a concern I share, and Scale Up kind of went on about more of the issues that I brought up earlier. Some extended thoughts on Starfield. I think it looks good. I was never expecting it to be genre redefining the way many others were, and I think the game looks like the Fallout Skyrim in space I was expecting, which is fine. I do see some serious technical red flags. That frame rate was total arse. 30 FPS with poor frame pacing. I would usually be like, I'm sure it will be improved, but this is Bethesda we're talking about. Right on the money, Ralph. So LOL, it absolutely will not. The dead-eyed NPCs are a worry. Yeah, that is definitely something that stood out. We've come so far in this area, it's a shame Bethesda hasn't. It's that engine. Jesus. Combat is very meh, but I never expected different. You don't play Bethesda games for combat, and this doesn't look to change that, indeed. I really like the factions and locations we saw. So much of a BGS game's appeal lies in the setting, and I'm liking this one so far. Another user saying, Starfield has NPCs walking around with their heads backwards. If they shown up in carefully curated trailers, I can't imagine what the real game will look like, and I mean, this is just how Bethesda has been. I believe with Fallout 76 and its first gameplay reveal, there was an actual moment in which somebody gets shot on one arm, but they end up losing the other arm. Just an example of a bugs that we've become accustomed to Bethesda, things that I do not think they will get away with in a post-cyberpunk world. Mudahar saying, Starfield looks cool, but I still don't trust Todd Howard. I'll wait till we see real reviews and actual performance. Destin, another journalist, saying, I'm always going to be honest with my reactions, and Starfield did not get me excited with that demo. Forza 8 looks stunning, and for Starfield, the tech issues in that reveal are immediately concerning. I'll always be honest about my feelings, even if guys like Alex hate me now, and that's because a user said they did not like his opinion on a game. Kind of ridiculous. Another user pointing out Starfield combat is hilarious. Dude got shot in the back and didn't even flinch, something I brought up earlier. Zarek Zakaran, streamer, YouTuber, I've watched some of his content before. Experience of Starfield, a procedurally generated galaxy like never before, or like other space games that do the same thing. Temper your expectations for a studio that focuses on handcrafted worlds. You'll have to use your imagination like Daggerfall or No Man's Sky. That's a concern that a lot of us have. RGT85, another YouTuber, saying, does anyone feel like Starfield looks kinda mid, or is it just me? Another user saying, damn, the Starfield analysis is coming on well. I call this one the ceiling. Xbox never ceases to give content through failure. And that's because whenever enemies seem to get shot and they went flying up in the air, they seem to get stuck just randomly up in the air or in a ceiling. Kind of weird, just again another bug. Another user saying, I'm crying, Starfield looks so genuinely bad. Game Pass versus a $70 game. This is what I meant by some of the PlayStation accounts trying to, I guess, diminish Starfield for some reason, just because I guess it's not available on PlayStation. Comparing the facial animations of Starfield versus Horizon Forbidden West, it's just not a one-to-one comparison because Bethesda has never been very good in that department. They should be, but they're not. Another Twitter user saying, I'm 1000% sold on Starfield, base building, hiring NPCs, shipbuilding, choosing your crew, first-person dogfighting in space, 100 systems with over 1,000 planets to visit. My hype is dangerously out of control right now. Bethesda took all the life, personality, fun from the Outer Worlds and called it Starfield. Andy Cortez saying, I usually don't care for Bethesda games, but I genuinely think Starfield looks amazing. If you thought it looked okay, I have no problem with that, but everyone's saying it looks bad played Skyrim and Fallout for 500 hours on their PlayStations. You can't convince me otherwise. Gene Park saying, I am worried 1,000 times the planets will be 2023's version of 16 times the detail. Rich of Review Tech USA saying, the fart that you see it on the screen. I don't even know how to respond to something like that. Jiz Corden of Windows Central saying Starfield looks like the game I always wanted Elite Dangerous to be. And last but not least, Shinobi 602. Some of the mixed responses in my mentions is weird to me. It's space Skyrim, customization looks great, build your own ship, planets to explore, characters look great, feels like a big step up over past BGS games, frame rate, etc. can be polished up, still plenty of time. So as you can see, the reception, the reactions are just all over the place. But the most important thing to note is that Starfield is unreleased, still months and months away with a lot of work needed. As critical or cynical, I suppose, as I sound, I'll be there day one. I'm honestly anticipating seeing the Mars rover on Mars and all the other cool Easter eggs and mysteries the game has to offer. Of course, I am very much concerned, like many others are, about certain elements of the game. These concerns are ones I've had with the last decade of BGS games, and I doubt they will all be addressed. My expectations are just in check, being managed. I don't think this will redefine gaming, but could and hopefully will be a game I spend a lot of time in. Anyway, I did a poll in the channel a number of hours ago asking for your opinion on Starfield, and the overwhelming majority seemed to be in agreement with a wait and see attitude, and I think that is the right approach with this. I imagine probably around the Game Awards in December we'll probably get another look at Starfield, and hopefully we see some improvements across the board. Maybe that is me being a little too overly optimistic, but anywho, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value. Make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games. And again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this. I'll see you later.